Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Pringanongo bringing you another Cosmonarchy cast, and yes, it does feature Escozi. I'm glad you asked. This one is going to be probably the last Escozi cast, for real, in the unbroken chain of Escozi casts, until, we get some more Escozi replays that are super epic. But we have a pretty cool matchup here for you. I did want to show Escozi versus Zerg, and I do have such a replay, so we're going to be taking a look at that together here. TopRamen in the top left playing the new race. He is the yellow Escozi. And down here in the bottom right, we have the red Zerg. That is, I like to eat grass. And Grass Eater is an interesting guy because he does play in a decent number of weekend wages. He does play in a decent number of our tribunals. He almost defeated Shambler, but Shambler reverse swept him, went on to defeat Neblime, and almost defeat Shopkeeper Dog until he was reverse swept. A lot of reverse sweeps in that last tribunal. But Grass Eater's been around the block for a while. And should there be a future expansion of the Class 2 bracket that we have here, we have like a class system of our players in terms of ranks. That's like our stand-in for, shall we say, instead of having like a Diamond and a Masters and a Grandmasters or whatever, we have, Class 1 is the top, and then Class 2 is someone like an aspiring player, someone who's trying to get pretty good at the game, pretty reasonable at this point, rising through the ranks. I would imagine most, StarCraft 1 or StarCraft 2 pros would immediately default to Class 2 tech once they get a little bit of value in there, but yeah, it's cool to see. Cool to see, anyway. So the Rove Rush is in, and immediately Grass Eater is unhappy about this. He burrows too late. He shouldn't have indeed. And obviously he has gone for a Pool Larvos combo. So this is a little bit of power from the Rove, getting a single kill and causing some economic disruption. Let's see if that sucker that's been burrowed at the bottom ever gets unburrowed. This is a common issue for Zerg players, is that they burrow their workers, and thankfully Grass Eater does not succumb to this, but they never unburrow them. So it is like an extra worker kill. Down goes another one of the Zeths. You don't have to worry too much about the ability of the Rove. It is just a blink to an ally. But it can be pretty nifty. And, sometimes, like I think versus Terran Mech, if they're going Cyclops, one thing you can definitely do with the blinks is you can try to blink to each other to avoid the splash damage. I think that would be really cool and hype to see. But as of right now, it's not a huge issue. The other unit you can make out of the function from the get-go is you can try and make the... you can definitely try to make things like the object. That's the other unit you get access to without a tech structure. And it does absorb a lot of damage, but it's very slow. So if you actually want to move it across the map in any granted amount of time, good luck. And only now is Ramen starting to harvest a little bit more Vespene, indicating that he might want either an object or indeed some other unit or tech. And we'll see what kind of structure he ends up going for. Already capping his ridge. Now, I just wanted to point out that the Escozi have seen some bug fixes since this game was played, but as of right now, in this replay, you will not spot the arch being able to be team built. So it is just going to take a flat 50 seconds, walloping, so it will take a while. But that was fixed in between, this game being played and me casting it now. There's a couple of other changes in terms of fleshing out some of the units that they have, and look at this massive amount of team building happening over here for this landlock off to the side. We are going to see, he actually maybe doesn't realize you have to cap it at 5. You cannot have more than 5 builders, so he brought down a few extras, but they can immediately start harvesting. That is a little bit faster than it's intended to be. We will see the Roves in action. Initial salvo okay, trades 1 Rove for the 2 Quas, then he ends up losing a second one on the back end. You'll note that when they get attacked, they actually move a little bit faster. That is a feature of the Rove and also of the Missionary, which is a basic bio unit, indicating that they're, really what they're going for is that speed. Again, no usage of the active ability, but no real surprises there. These Roves are looking for maybe a run-by. And a little bit of a fighting retreat with a cliff advantage. They could have maybe popped a Hydra on the way. But instead it looks like they're just going to cycle through. Maybe see if they can get into the worker line of the main base. Some of them are a little bit bruised, so they end up just ranging down 1 Hydra, and then, yeah, I think this is the right move. You pop in here. If you had 6 of them, I would say go after the Larvos, honestly, but, being able to 2-salvo the Droleth is pretty good. Not quite finishing off that Zethar core. And maybe 1 or 2 more workers will end up going down here. Unlikely, as a couple more of the roves end up falling. But honestly, they've done their job, right? During this whole time, Ramen's been actually harvesting from the natural here. Mostly minerals, obviously, but he's got his arch done, he's got gas mining, and he's made a whole buttload of extra roves that just now get scouted. A dozen of them dispatched across the map. Oh yeah, and we are working on a couple of things related to the Escozi. One of them is the fire effects are going to be green. I've already actually done the graphical work, I just have to do the code work. And then there's a few other things that we're doing. Oh yeah, a building step, so in the middle of construction, having different graphics than the Terran one. And wireframes, those are on the way. Those are on the way. June 3 Hong, also known as Sersky, been helping us out with wireframes for a very long time, and he sent in a few, but we still have more to do. He's just on holiday, so Merry Christmas. Oh yeah, and I guess I turned the Christmas skins off. I forgot about that, so little sequence break there. Oh no! The roves are crashing headfirst into death. Nope. Yeah, I wonder about that one. We do have Intendants coming in. So the Intendant on the new version of the game doesn't have like just raw splash and instead has a bounce attack. And I think that's going to be pretty cool. I think it's going to be pretty neat. But we'll see if these roves can get anything done. I'm guessing the answer is no. Huh? They are going to wind around. Again, this is where the Escozi are really adept at navigating through the battlefield like that. Imagining, of course, if they could blink to things. Honestly, I don't think roves should have it because it would be a little too vulture-like. But something to embed a trap that you can then, a ward of some kind that you can then leap to would be really cool. The objects are absorbing a lot of the initial pressure here. The Intendants are doing their best to try to come through a little bit. We have that lovely, helpful debug message that I can then fix. Maybe I already did fix. Let's see if the Intendants can do anything. They have a lot of splash damage on their alpha attack, so that's working out pretty well. The kiting back is good. We got more Intendants up there on the high ground as well. I think the Hydras are going to be routed here. We do have reinforcements coming in, but it is just Iziricors. And we do need some more units popping out here. 5 more Intendants are coming in. And the Iziricors absorbing the initial round of damage that allows the Hydras to do something here. And so I do think the landlock is going to be besieged. The Pilgrims are going to need to do something over here. Can we get a reaction from Ramen? He's going to start evacuating his workers. 14 of them moving up to the main base, but they can pretty much get right back to it now that the Intendant rally is out. There's a period of time, like right now, where all of the functions are idle, and he's not actually making any units. Definitely needs to get on that. And look at this, one of his Intendants is being lured across the bridge. Oh no! Lost for free. Ramen in a lot of trouble now. 11 Hydras going to encroach onto the position. A Chantry is good, but it only heals when the battlefield is peaceful. When the battle is quieted for just a moment. Still, it's something. And more Intendants have arrived. Okay, so the monocomp has switched back in. Now we got rogues coming. So that'll be a pretty good harassment tool to try to pump in there. One thing that's pretty underrated, actually, is going for emissaries at a stage like this. Obviously, it does require you to grab the Cosmoscope for it. But actually being able to drop is pretty good. Grass Eater's done a pretty reasonable job of securing Kagra all around, and he does have some claws in here in case there are some drops, but I have to see. One thing I would hate to see is, in the future, the getting into a point where, like Reapers in Starcraft 2, every map has like an Escozi jump point that they can jump to. That's not what we need. It's fine if it's set up, you know what I mean? But being able to play some kind of hidden thing with small vision range, but jumpable, is a pretty neat concept for the early stages of the game. And maybe that's something that the you could end up seeing the Pilgrims doing even. It could be like a worker thing, right? So, even more incentive to Worker Scout then. 12 o'clock has been taken at the same time as 3 o'clock for Grass Eater, so our Escozi player is keeping up in bases. And the Roves are going to be acting as a nice little front line to deflect some of the initial attacks, but this is a lot of Zerg. Now, the splash damage is coming in pretty clutch here versus the Zets, but I think the Vorvs are just going to overwhelm all of the Intendant attack speeds, allowing the Hydras to just get right up on top of them. Better composition, it feels like, from Grass Eater here. No surprises, to be honest. People are still figuring out what compositions even look like. Dyads have arrived. They build faster than Pilgrims, but they do not harvest resources. Wow, look at that. So that's what happens when you don't have the surround, as Grass Eater is just painfully realized. Although, also, if those intendants were just there, it would have been a different story anyway. Roves have cycled around, just trying to be a nuisance, trying to be annoying. You know, that's the sort of thing that they're dealing with right now. Oh man, I just had the most ridiculous idea. I don't exactly know how it would work, but I was imagining a situation. Oh my god, 16 attendants, by the way. I was imagining a situation where when you are benefiting from the movement speed boost that some Escozi units get when they're attacked, you're also regenerating life. That would be pretty epic. And then you have to try to out DPS the rogue or whatever. That's pretty good micro right there. You got to be moving while if you're not moving, you're not benefiting from it. You know what I mean? Well, anyway, the intendants are massed up to a ridiculous enough degree that... oh, and look at that. We actually do have a Cosmoscope done, and it is making an emissary. So we are going to see that unit pop out here pretty soon. Hydra's now trying to do their best Rove impression. We do have a couple of grandstands. Oh, this one wasn't finished. This one needs to be finished, and I don't even know... I mean, there's no indication of it right now visually, so Ramen might not even notice. There you go. He actually did finish it. Look at that. You'll love to see it. Pilgrims are able to easily clean that up, especially with the help of the attendants shooting from downtown. We got another landlock establishing in the top right. A lot of idle workers at 3 o'clock. Grass Eater spending down his bank. Zorka's Shroud coming up for him. He's also upgrading his Hydra Den into a ski-backed. So, let's see what he can do there. I'm wondering where that Circuit is. Must be in the... Yeah, he's adding a lot of static defense to the third base. That makes sense. He does not want to have to deal with the Intendant March. And just to reiterate, in case you guys don't know, we are using a load of placeholder models for the Escozi. We are working on some visual updates for them, but that's kind of the least of the worries in the moment. We're actually focusing a little bit more on just making sure the race itself actually exists. You know what I mean? The Agrolith is out, but that's short-lived. Circuits are attempting to defend. They're slowing things down long enough that you would think the Zerg would be capable of doing something here, but instead, he's going to immediately go after the Emissary. See what he can do there. Unfortunately for TopRamen, his drop tactic doesn't quite work out, but it doesn't even really matter too much, right? Like, he's definitely thinking about, okay, maybe I'll just drop over in the other side of things. And the Intendants are going to come in and clear out this third base. The Zerg army is trying to mass up, and now the Intendant has been dropped over here again, and so the burrow is quick and reflexive. Looks like the Emissary will end up going down, but this base is absolutely shellacked, and top right is done, which means Ramen can expand some workers in that direction as well. Feels like the Intendant cleanup right about now. But I do like this flank here from Grass Eater. He came out onto the map and then tried to see if he could overwhelm the Intendants on the ground, and it does look like that's worked out. We just happen to have a lot more coming on the other side of it. So we'll have to see if that can still keep things going. Another Emissary has dropped a bunch of roves, but he hasn't actuated it yet. A lot of money in the bank here for Grass Eater. Drowning in Escozi forces, it seems. Oh, yeah. This does not look like a winning fight for him right in this moment. I'm going to be honest with you guys. And another drop over here as well. My guess is... Oh, well, no, the roves are now moving ahead. They didn't end up getting overwhelmed by those quads over there. I'm guessing the replay's a little bit scuffed towards the end of this, but it does feel like what is in sync is the utter catastrophe, the calamity even, that has befallen Grass Eater's economy. So that part is true. Like, obviously he made a lot of units, a lot more units, and when you see these units idling like this, it probably means that they died in the real version of the replay, but we survived long enough to see that big move out, then get crushed, the drops distract the attention. Ramen winning as Escozi. That must have felt pretty nice. Guys, we will have some more interesting updates for you about the Escozi going forward. I think unless some really epic banger comes across my desk, we're going to move on to going back to, casting matches between the races that are fully fledged enough to be playable in competitive play, as the Escozi are still, not going to be counting in tournaments or anything until late January. So we'll see you guys for regular updates about them, but it might be a little bit before you see them again. So thanks for tuning in to these Escozi casts, and remember that the 4th race is continuing to see development, but that means race number 5 likely coming in 2026. Looking forward to that. GG.